Dr. Ron Paul. We appreciate you being here.
Mr. Chairman and panel, I want to thank you very much for the opportunity to come here to visit, because I consider what you're doing is very important, not only for your state and for the issue of money, but for an understanding about some of our problems in this country. It's an issue that I have worked on for a long time. Matter of fact, it was in 1971 when we sort of deserted all monetary sense with the breakdown of the Bretton Woods and just separating the dollar completely from gold is when I got interested in talking about economic policy. So I'm delighted to be able to come here and visit with you a bit, and I really want to congratulate you for this, because I think of this in a couple terms. You know, in Washington, one of my biggest complaints in Washington was the complaint with Congress. I was a member, but I was complaining because they were always delivering the prerogatives, the responsibilities to somebody else, to the bureaucrats, to international organization, and they would give it to the executive branch, and they never accepted their responsibility. On the monetary issues, the states are talked about in the Constitution, and they have restrictions. They can't print money, but they also have been told in the Constitution that they can only use gold and silver as legal tender. So the responsibility is on the states to follow the rules, and that meant nobody was supposed to use anything other than silver, gold, and gold as legal tender. But we've had a mess. It's gotten worse. It started in 1913. There was a sort of a climactic end in 1971, but the problems have continued. And if you look at some of the charts, things have been really rocky since 71 with the destruction of the value of the money. Since 1971, we've lost 95% of the value of the dollar, and the tragedy there is that the average person, the middle class, gets wiped out. Austrian economics teaches that if you destroy the currency, you will destroy the middle class, and people who will get the money that the government prints, which they shouldn't be allowed to do, goes into the pockets of the bankers and the corporations. And when the people get the money, their prices go up, and they wonder why they're getting behind. Well, my wages went up $5, $10. No, they need to be $15, but they're looking in the wrong place. It's the monetary issue that it is the real problem. So what you're doing here, the way I understand it, is you're suggesting that maybe we ought not to tax money. And I think that's a good idea, because I'd like to not tax a lot of things, but certainly it makes no sense to tax money. And that is what I understand you're trying to stop, because if you have currency transactions across the world, they don't measure the value of the dollar. Oh, your dollar value went up, so we're going to tax you on the increase of your value. So no, you don't get taxed for that. So the tax issue has been used. Matter of fact, the very early history was they used the tax issue to more or less justify the Second National Bank, which got us off on the wrong track because they called it a tax issue rather than a monetary issue. But very explicitly, the Congress is allowed to coin money. One time in a banking committee hearing, they were arguing the case that in the Constitution they were given the authority to print money at will. And I wrote in my dissenting view that show me. It says you're not allowed to coin money, but that's how. But they just did that. They came to believe that they had the authority to print money. They don't have the authority to print money, and the states can only use silver and gold as legal tender. And in Article 10, where they mention that you can only use gold and silver, the very next sentence is you can't counterfeit the securities or the coin of the United States. And I often wondered if we'd have ever enforced the law of the 1792, the very first Coinage Act. It said that anybody that did commit counterfeit could get the death penalty. And I often thought, boy, I don't know if they'll ever get around to enforcing that. That'd be a lot of problems. But that's how seriously they felt about this, because they had the runaway inflation with the continental dollar, and subsequently they tried to keep the central banks. Al Jefferson got rid of the first central bank, and Jackson got rid of the second national bank, and we're waiting on the third one to fall. But it's the issue of money, and I think this tax issue is very important. I like the idea of competing currencies, and in my ideas about getting back to normal, you probably can't turn a switch under today's condition and say, well, tomorrow it's going to be like the old days. It doesn't work. But you could move gradually back if you have competing currencies. So I've often introduced legislation for competing currencies, and what you're doing here would be very helpful. It would be legalizing competition in a constitutional fashion. It isn't like saying, okay, Arizona wants to print their paper currency again, because you're not allowed to do that, but you're allowed to try to make it competitive. And I think this is very important. I think it's important for what you're doing. It's an important issue. It could help your state, and there's a lot of benefits. But to me, since I'm in the education business as much as the political business, I think what you're doing here is just great. I think if this passes, people are going to know about this. Other states are already involved. There's going to be a lot more. So this is where the responsibility of government ought to be. I like the idea to come to a state legislative body, because I think the authority should be here with the states, not at the federal level. Their job is to mess things up. And your job at the state level is to try to clean up the mess. But this would be historic, and it'll be noticed. It'll be a good step in the right direction. And I am very pleased with what's been happening, because in the 1970s, I was motivated by the breakdown of the gold standard in 1971. If anybody remembers the 70s, we had interest rates at 21%, inflation rate of 15%, and I thought the monetary issue was important, because it is the monetary debasement that allows governments, federal governments, to spend more money than they have, and they print it, then they can have a welfare warfare state and no responsibility. So that's what fascinated me about the monetary issue. And I think that there'll come a day when it's absolutely necessary that we do it. Conditions will get so bad, so the more understanding there is. I am always delighted when so many young people are interested in this issue, because many young people will be inheriting this problem and trying to sort it out. But it's really not too difficult. It isn't something because Ron Paul likes the gold standard. Believe me, the gold standard was invented a long, long time ago. From the beginning of recorded history, 5,000 years ago, they used gold and silver. Biblically, gold and silver, real weights and measures. That's what they counted by. So this is not brand new. It's the governments and the people who seek power are always undermining the restraints placed on governments by honest money. So I congratulate you for hearing and dealing with this bill, because I think if you do pass this bill, it will be a great step forward for a lot of people to understand the money issue and the freedom issue.
I'm trying to wrap my mind around how this isn't simply another tax giveaway to people who are coin collectors. The problem I see is that I get your point about you don't tax money when you exchange money for money. And I would buy that if the $20 gold piece from 1850 was going to be traded for a $20 bill. Then you don't tax that. Because that's what happens when you got a gold coin that says a face value of $20. It should be worth $20. It's always worth $20. When you got a $20 bill that's worth $20, it's always worth $20. When you actually trade money, paper money, no one gives you less because it's all balled up and torn and all the rest of it. But if you trade a $20 gold coin for money, then you get a lot less if it's in bad shape. To me, the value of a gold coin, silver coin, all the rest of that stuff is worth based on a combination of how much of the precious metal is in it, what combination, what condition it's in, and whether or not there's a big market for that particular coin. So it becomes more of a collector thing. So to give someone a capital gains tax break on the money they make in money that you would call dishonest money from selling that coin seems like just simply a tax giveaway that other people will be paying for, because we're going to need to get enough money to pay for our roads and schools anyway.
Well,